It was a dream of mine to get it done. It took 8 years to get it sold, but here we are now.
With blazing motors and dazzling shop lights, Richard Rawlings constructed more than he created a myth, not simply custom vehicles. However, beneath the million-dollar agreements, burnouts, and quick talk, there was another tale going on, one that was hardly ever shown on television. The gas monkey empire is familiar to you. The slogans, the mayhem. But what occurs when the cameras turn off, and when does real life begin to slink in? A crossroads unrelated to automobiles stood between the garage doors, and a well-publicized unraveling for Rawlings. Fast rides and celebrity aren't the only things at stake. It concerns what he almost lost in the process of pursuing it. The ascent of a gearhead rock star, Richard Rawlings created a movement in addition to automobiles. Long before the release of Fast and Loud television screens in 2012, Rawlings had previously established the Gas Monkey Garage in Dallas in 2002. What began as a rundown neighborhood garage swiftly became the focal point of a worldwide automotive culture as a result of Rawlings' unwavering work ethic and keen sense of what people were eager to see. He was flipping stories in addition to fixing automobiles. His capacity to create high-stakes entertainment out of every dented hot rod, making Fast and Loud more than a show, an exhilarating visual extravaganza that popularized car culture. Rawlings was the driving force behind this success. A quick-talking, bargain-hunting, sunglasses-wearing entertainer who made money off of his charm. He was not your typical gearhead who would wrench in silence. He was boisterous, blatantly ostentatious, and so convincing. Whether he was landing a huge Camaro or negotiating over a rusted-out one, Rawlings brought rockstar excitement to the garage through a brand collaboration. Fans weren't only watching in for the builds, they were anticipating Rawlings' next move or statement. In numerous respects, he became the spokesperson for a brand new automotive culture in which character was just as important as skill. It was no accident that he became famous. Between TV, business, and the vanishing act, Rawlings as well as lifestyle branding. He used memorable expressions like, "Get you some of that," and "gas." Over time, Monkey became a marketing powerhouse and became ingrained in popular culture. Through major advertising, TV appearances, and even record label endeavors. In essence, car repair was no longer just for ardent technicians. It was become a noisy, arrogant, and ostentatious. However, as the media spotlight persecuted him throughout the day, this made his fans question whether Rawlings is still primarily a constructor or more of a brand. Rawlings' popularity increased even further as a result of Fast and Loud's declining ratings. Rising through the ranks as a result, from boardrooms to red carpets to garages and nationwide advertising efforts. He continued to entertain the masses while moving higher. Does the charm that created an empire also serve as a cover for internal wear and tear? Does celebrity ever become too big for the original plan? These are still open questions. About as Rawlings consistently prioritizes his development over the television screen. And one thing is obvious. This native of Dallas essentially transformed auto culture into entertainment, and in the process, became something of a gearhead symbol. Under the hood, things weren't going as planned. Tensions were rising, and one important player was about to lose it. The creative clash. Aaron Kaufman was the heart and spirit of Fast and Loud, not merely Richard Rawlings' sidekick. His distinctive beard, reserved manner, and somewhat compulsive attention to detail Kaufman gave the builds credibility, which captivated spectators. Although Rawlings was Kaufman was a salesperson and entertainer, who was also a craftsman, transforming damaged husks into roaring motors with the accuracy of an artist. Their relationship was electric from the start. Rawlings' pursued Kaufman brought them to life. However, that chemistry started as the show became more well-known to display fissures. It was noted by fans. Kaufman appeared less enthusiastic. He spoke less. Additionally, some even questioned whether he was beginning to check out. The truth was that the frantic speed of reality TV was incompatible with Kaufman's method of automobile construction. Working with strict deadlines, continuous camera pressure, and rising commercial expectations began to erode at his artistic liberty. Since then, Kaufman has mentioned the conflict, how TV compelled them to give precedence to visual appeal above creative or mechanical reasoning. It was now more about pace, spectacle, and sponsor timelines than it was about innovation. Was the content of the show sacrificed for its quality? Kaufman was not the only one who seemed to think so. Even die-hard admirers started to notice the change. Behind-the-scenes tension was never directly verified, although rumors about their collaboration have been around for a while. Despite the fact that both guys were professionals, it was obvious that their priorities were different. Kaufman aimed to challenge conventions and take on challenging creates and develop as a builder. However, Rawlings had more important issues to address: license agreements, business partnerships, and a growing media brand. The course of Fast and Loud's motivation shifted from mechanical excellence to entertaining value. Was Kaufman felt the program was becoming a business machine rather than a place for creativity? Many people think that was the last straw that caused him to leave in 2017. Kaufman's eventual departure wasn't particularly noteworthy, although it was a seismic event. He presented it as a personal choice since he wanted to work on initiatives alone. Phrases. However, for a lot of admirers, it was a watershed moment, possibly the start of the end for Quick and Loud. After that, the show never quite regained the same intensity. The sensation of the builds distinct. There was no longer any chemistry. More than only concerns about the show were sparked by Kaufman's departure. It prompted inquiries around the price of converting passion into a product. Furthermore, Rawlings would go on going forward. A lot of fans silently pondered, did Kaufman's departure make Fast and Loud lose its heart? Expansion or escape plan for Garage Rehab? In 2016, Richard Rawlings submitted a Garage Rehab pitch to the Discovery Channel. Many viewed it as a daring new phase in the Fast and Loud star's career. The idea was straightforward but powerful. Rather than selling automobiles, he would sell failed auto shops, bringing dying companies back to life with his distinctive vigor and business acumen. It was no longer solely about horsepower and wrenches. This had to do with organization, leadership, and second chances. Co-host Chris Stevens, and with Russell Holmes, Rawlings went into garages all throughout the nation and transformed them, operational as well as physical. However, even though the show appeared to be a logical continuation of the gas, some fans were compelled to inquire about the Monkey brand. Was this genuinely about growth, or was Rawlings already preparing to leave Fast and Loud? There were questions about the timing. The Garage Rehab was greenlit during a time when Fast and Loud's ratings were still good, but obviously changing. The initial excitement of high-stakes projects and barn findings had started to wane, particularly after Aaron Kaufman's departure. Was Rawlings able to see the writing on the wall and made the decision to hedge his wagers? It was a great business move on paper. Garage Rehab gave him permission to continue to appear on television, develop his brand into mentoring and consulting, and present a more somber, his strategic side. But does the outdated format also indicate a lack of creativity? Admirers discussed if Rawlings was truly interested in restoring other garages, or if he was only searching for an escape from the mayhem he had contributed to. In contrast to the rapid tempo and sparkle of Garage Rehab, and Fast and Loud added something different and less related to amusement and more about transformation. Rawlings seems to relish playing the role of fixer, filling in with the mentality of a wild-eyed car flipper instead than a tough-love business teacher. Significant change in tone, possibly more indicative of Rawlings' personal vision of the future. He had been alive, big, establishing an empire, and now presenting himself as a somebody who could instruct others on to follow suit. Although the change raised fresh concerns about whether he was attempting to distance himself from the rough, garage-based beginnings that had brought him fame, or was it simply the development of a man who was opposed to parking in a single lane? Garage Rehab undoubtedly altered the entire environment, in signaling a period of time when Rawlings was unafraid to change who he was, and he also understood the Fast and Loud restrictions. Was this only a side project or the next stage in your journey? Up? Given how well it coincided with the escalating symptoms of burnout, it raises questions. From the first series, perhaps he was aware that Fast and Loud couldn't continue indefinitely. Or perhaps Rawlings was simply acting on his instincts, and changing gears prior to the engine was unable to count. Garage Rehab demonstrated, in one way or another, that Rawlings was not just he was focusing on the final game and what would happen with the next episode. Is the Dodge deal overload or smart? In 2014, Richard Rawlings signed a nationwide sponsorship contract with Dodge. Seemed to be the final affirmation. Once running rust buckets out of dusty barns, this man was now the spokesperson for one of the most recognizable muscle car manufacturers in America. Rawlings saw it as more than simply it was a high-stress brand identity alignment, another employment. He ripped through advertisements in Hellcats, scorched rubber on screen, and infused each shot with his trademark bravado. Admirers, I enjoyed it at first. Rawlings was the car guy, not just a famous person selling a car. It felt genuine, as if Dodge had at last teamed up with a person who was passionate about horsepower. However, some supporters started to have doubts as Rawlings got more involved in business dealings, where his true priorities lay. He was everywhere between 2014 and 2017, in advertisements for Dodge, on brand new TV series, promoting energy drinks, setting up eateries, and releasing more merchandise than ever. It was challenging to distinguish between a personal brand and a car display in full speed. Concerns about overexposure began to circulate among critics. Was the gas monkey being diluted by Rawlings' identity by affixing his name to anything that moved, or worse, by offering for sale the unpolished weapon that had initially earned him a popular favorite? Despite being on brand, the Dodge partnership appeared to signify a sea change in Rawlings' reputation. No longer the one struggling in the background, he was suddenly a well-groomed, marketable individual who could compete in boardrooms of advertising agencies. Although it prompted questions about authenticity, But it wasn't necessarily a bad thing. Did he still drive the same vehicle? Guy that fast and loud fans cheered for at the beginning? Had he been adopted as a mascot? More pitchman than passion project for muscle cars? Eventually, the Dodge advertisements slowed down. Then the excitement subsided, but the questions persisted. It's still unclear if the Dodge transaction was a brilliant example of brand synergy, or the start of a change that would eventually drive Rawlings away from his beginnings in the garage. On the one hand, it made him a well-known star. Conversely, however, it made it difficult to distinguish between a marketing machine and a gearhead. A few admirers rejoiced. Others silently missed the man who used to stake all on a dirty Chevelle as part of his business endeavors. When Rawlings placed his brand in control, the Dodge era demonstrated just how far he could go. However, it also alluded to the price of that kind of acceleration, not in monetary terms, but in terms of genuineness. The period of gas monkey licensing, when the fast and loud popularity peaked, Richard Rawlings took a daring and contentious action. He started selling Gas Monkey brand licenses. Gas Monkey evolved from a garage to a full-fledged company empire, wearing the name on everything from energy drinks and beer to dining establishments, clothing, and auto components. Few builders have this power play. Executed well, and it was brilliant on paper. Why confine the brand to a television program or a single Dallas store when you could make it a global way of life? Rawlings found it to be more about reach and less about wrenches and welds. However, once the Gas Monkey emblem appeared on stores across cities, an increasing number of admirers started to wonder if the brand had lost its character. What formerly stood for a hands-on, gritty car culture was now smeared over new spicy sauces and bottles of tequila. Rawlings had strayed too far from his garage roots, according to critics, sacrificing genuineness in favor of widespread appeal. Was it erosion or evolution? Some regular viewers thought disengaged, claiming that the brand became a marketing campaign and that the builds were neglected. Device. Although Rawlings was never afraid to pursue business endeavors, the amount of licensing deals made it difficult to determine if he was merely managing a portfolio or still operating a garage. Rawlings' enormous success was eventually undeniable. With a license, the Gas Monkey brand was able to grow well beyond the scope of a simple reality program thanks to Rawlings. There was merchandise everywhere. Despite the unrest, bars and eateries remained important monuments in Texas. Additionally, he established several revenue sources by granting access to the brand to outside businesses. For himself, despite devoting significantly less time to the everyday tasks than he would have in on a build or in front of a camera. From a purely business standpoint, it was an excellent decision. However, imaginatively, and that's where the true divide still exists, is it appropriate to refer to it as Gas Monkey Garage? The garage is now secondary, so why not? Rawlings has frequently stated in interviews that he observes nothing incorrect because, as he notes, he started the business from scratch and, as a result, he had the authority to take use of it. And he's not incorrect. Building Gas Monkey involved a great deal of risk, and perhaps the next natural step was licensing. However, this raises a deeper query. Did Fast and Loud fans join up for this specifically? Getting a license made Rawlings extremely rich, but it also caused issues for his legacy. Did the company outgrow the construction? Or did a hustler who never stopped thinking bigger naturally evolve into this? Depending on whether one views Gas Monkey as a brand or a garage initially, the response may vary. Why did the engine abruptly shut out when the cameras stopped rolling while success and the brand were booming? The franchise's decline by 2020, when Fast and Loud abruptly ceased operations, the once iconic exhibition has already begun to show signs of deterioration. There was no spectacular conclusion. No touching farewell episode, only Richard Rawlings' evasive affirmation that the collaboration with Discovery was terminated. For a show that has dominated the reality of Cars TV for almost 10 years, thus the absence of resolution was unexpected. Later, Rawlings would disclose that he made the choice to leave, saying in interviews, "I've left Discovery. We're finished." However, this sudden conclusion left fans with more questions than answers. I am a free agent. Was it the outcome of more serious conflicts with the network, or was it genuinely a step toward creative freedom? In private, Rawlings alluded to the fact that his agreement with Discovery had grown more limiting. He revealed an unexpected fact. He had given up the media rights to the extent that he was unable to share pictures of his own vehicle purchases on social media without Discovery's blessing. For a businessman who is so involved in self-promotion and personal branding, this was a significant drawback. It's simple to speculate about potential conflicts between this type of red tape. With Rawlings' innate business sense, did he believe that his professional and artistic abilities were limited? Did the show's format hinder his development as a builder and a brand? The issue was made worse by the way TV entertainment for cars was evolving. Exploration had started, concentrating on more recent series like Diesel Brothers, Gold Rush, and Street Outlaws. Formats had tended toward more expansive character ensembles and realistic competition. On the other hand, Fast and Loud was still based on a more conventional flip-and-build model with a single personality model. Younger viewers moved to YouTube and social media as streaming services expanded. The debate that arose as to whether Rawlings' television aesthetic was just fading. Does Discovery consider Fast and Loud to be outdated? Or had the program just run out of story fuel? For whatever reason, Fast and Loud's finale signified more than just the conclusion of a television program. It marked the end of a period. Everything about it. The connection, the hustle, the barn finds, the stress, the victories contributed to the definition of an automotive culture moment. However, similar to any long-running engine that is overworked, eventually it wore out. Was Rawlings' departure due to the network losing control or to regain control? Interest can still be interpreted in different ways. However, one thing is evident: the cameras ceased to roll. Burnout, but with a bang. Additionally, Richard Rawlings didn't stick, in typical Gas Monkey fashion, circling to clear the smoke. He was already changing course for whatever was coming next. Exotic risks and high-end builds. Many people questioned whether Richard Rawlings would diminish when Fast and Loud ended in 2020 from the spotlight on custom cars. Rather, he abruptly turned away from network and TV deadlines, limitations, and jumped right into riskier, more ambitious constructions. No more limited by the show's short turnaround forms, Rawlings started pursuing larger, more outrageous projects via Gas Monkey Garage. These muscle car flips weren't your typical ones. Consider 6x6 exotic European restorations, Humvees, and avant-garde traditions that would have never be able to fit into a 43-minute reality show. This change was about more than just flash. liberty. Rawlings has long bemoaned the shortcomings of television that was episodic. This frequently called for unrealistic deadlines and simplified builds. Currently working on, he aimed for more privileged territory on his own terms. Lamborghinis, Ferraris, and vintage imports that were unusual became new interests. But that also brought with it new difficulties. Unique constructions represent a significant financial risk and come under puritanical criticism. One incorrect change on a pricey car might turn off buyers or devalue its resale value. Did Rawlings push? Ingenuity? Or just staking his reputation? Rawlings continued, under pressure or not, to raise money for these more recent and upgraded vehicles. He put some gas monkey garage vehicles up for auction. More intricate constructions, indicating a significant shift in emphasis. He wasn't merely no longer strumming for nostalgia. These unique vehicles provided a stage for reaffirming the technical prowess of his group, push the boundaries, and draw in new clients, the type of person that values accuracy as much as performance. However, this change raises a larger with the devoted followers of Fast and Loud, who supported budget flips and barn finds, accompany him into this new strange world. That might not matter to Rawlings. He doesn't seem to be really concerned with following the rules. In true entrepreneurial spirit, what matters most is what comes next. The themes of post-TV Gas Monkey include danger, spectacle, and sheer creative liberation, whether it's an exotic German classic or a French recreational tank. Perhaps it's more rough and less approachable than previously, but one thing is certain. The Gas Monkey team does not lack audacity. Richard Rawlings is no longer interested in